Sea of Stars was a very pleasant experience. I didn't know exactly what to expect when I first downloaded it. I had heard that it was something akin to Chrono Trigger or Super Mario RPG or Golden Sun, and after playing it, the easiest way to describe it is the world map is very Chrono Trigger, but it's mostly Golden Sun for the story, um, with little sprinkles of Chrono Trigger, like nostalgia thrown in there, and the battle system was very Super Mario RPG. Um, and the beginning part of the story was very stereotypical. I kind of was like, it's okay, but it's just par for the course for RPGs. And then you get to the Dweller of Woe, which is the first major boss in the series, in the game. And it surprised me. One, it was the very insane battle. Two, it was a very horrifying looking monster, and the tone shifted very much when you got over there. And then of course, the betrayal afterwards when Brugraves and Erlina take the core of the Dweller and go off. And of course, that's when the Dweller of Strife is recreated. And the backstory of that is the Dweller of Strife was the most powerful dweller that happened to exist on this planet, and that the heroes, the previous set of heroes, which all the characters, main heroes, are called the Solstice Warriors. They are people born on a solstice, and they have access to solar or lunar magic, and these magics are the only things that can fight against the dwellers. And the dwellers are created by a man called the Fleshmancer, which I will get much more into him later. Um, so if a dweller is left alone, they eat the souls of people and grow bigger and bigger and bigger until they are big enough to destroy the entire planet. And that little bit there is kind of like, oh, it's a little bit like Lavos, where he's eating, 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 growing bigger, bigger, and then eventually the planet dies. Um, and it's like that. Well, the first dweller you beat, and of course you have that whole betrayal thing, it still kind of was stereotypical with the story. As it progressed from this point on in the second third of the game, it started to get a little bit more crazy, and um, you get back to this one town. It's been ravaged by the Dweller of Strife being reawoken, and you have to fight little creatures that it spawned, and you save the town. Then you build a new town, which is, a little side quest thing you can do throughout the game, and you can continue through the story. You try to get stronger and stronger and stronger so you can deal with the Dweller of Strife. Well, on their journey, they find out there's another dweller called the Dweller of Torment that has been left alone because there's like this magic seal where people forget. So you have to go on a side quest so you can actually keep yourself, from forgetting anything. And you go fight this dweller, take it out, and you're powered up even further. During this time, you also go on a couple side quests for a person called the Immortal Alchemist, or Rayshawn. And he's very important to the story because he's essentially the counterpart to the Fleshmancer. And because of the actions of the story, basically, the Immortal Alchemist can set up people on a planet to fight back against the Fleshmancer. And if they succeed, then the planet is saved. But if they don't, then a World Eater comes and destroys the planet. And it's almost like a game that's being played between the two. So the problem with this is that they cannot directly confront each other. And that means that there's very little that the immortal alchemist can do except for slightly help the heroes. Um, so when you get to Mesa Island, that's when I first realized that this was connected to the messenger. Now, I did not play the messenger, but I bought the soundtrack because it was from a guy called Rainbow Dragon Eyes. I know that he's going by his real name now, but that was like his band name. And he did chiptune music that was incredible. And then I found out about the messenger, which the music to that game is insane. And I haven't talked about the music in this one yet, but holy crap, did he bring it. So you get to this one island, Mesa Island, and on that island, pretty much all the music is remixed stuff from The Messenger. And it is some of the most incredible music, period. And it's just, you get there, the tone of the island, the whole plot, it starts going like, oh boy, starts to build up. And you're heading to the Fleshmancer's castle, which is also called Clockwork Castle. And when you get there, you fight Erlina and Brugraves, or Brugraves, and beat them. Get in, you take out everybody, get to the top of the castle, and then the Dweller of Strife comes. And at this point, I had read a little bit of the connections between the Messenger and Sea of Stars, and the Dweller of Strife is a gigantic Ahriman-looking eyeball monster. And there were these four acolytes that uh, served the Fleshmancer, that wanted to bring the Fleshmancer back to the planet. And when the Dweller of Strife came back and could not be defeated by the Solstice Warriors because of how strong it was, one of the teammates, Sarai, she took the Immortal Alchemist's vial of rewinding time and threw it at the Dweller of Strife, which immediately um, brought the Fleshmancer down, because that was against the rules, because that was directly affecting a Dweller. And then in this uh, the Dweller is taunting the not the Dweller, the immortal. The Fleshmancer is taunting the Immortal Alchemist about how, all these multiple worlds, which, jumping back, the Immortal Alchemist did something that created basically a multiverse, or connected them to the multiverse. And the Fleshmancer went off, and he's out there just experimenting on whatever he wants to do. And he's destroying planet after planet after planet. And the Immortal Alchemist is just trying to stop him from destroying all these planets. And it's a little bit of a game of cat and mouse, but they cannot directly attack each other. But they can do different things to set up the ways to stop them. And uh, jumping all the way back to the beginning of the story, the most impactful character is a person named Garl. And he is the best friends. He's best friends with the twins, which are Zale and Valerie. They were the latest Solstice warriors to be born on the summer and winter solstice, and they are basically the chosen ones, essentially, because they were very special. They were both born in the same year, time frame. With 1 year, that both of them came down, and they were best friends with Garl, who lived in their hometown. And Garl is just a regular guy. He has no magic, no power, like anything like that, but except for he's got a lot of heart. And throughout the story, his actions directly changed the fate of the entire planet. So you get to the confrontation with the Fleshmancer, and the Fleshmancer is he launches a magic spell that would kill Zale. and Garl jumps in the way, takes the shot, but because he has no magic at all, he's not going to survive it. So he's dying. Then you bring him back to an early dungeon where there's this mentor creature, and he has him figure like basically in Garl's dying moments, he sees a vision of the future of what has to be done in order to save the world. So during that time, he gets a special vial of a vial of borrowed time from the immortal alchemist, which allows him to be able to live longer than he actually supposed to. No matter what, he is going to die, and he's not going to make it. So his last actions are to set up Zale and Valerie being able to succeed. And you go through this long path of different quests in order to awaken a giant dragon, but to soothe his torment. Um, and after you do this, you awaken the dragon, and then you're allowed to cross the Sea of Stars. At this point, Garl officially is dead. He fades off. He can't live any longer. The borrowed time runs out. And that one hits you in the gut. And then at this point, you're at the end of the second third of the game. And that second third is really where the game just goes into full overdrive. And Garl is such a good character in comparison to everybody else. Like, everybody else is fine. But the plot with Garl, just, yeah. So now you're able to travel into the new world, but you only have four characters. You don't have all five. And as you go to this other world, into Sarai's homeworld, because it turns out that she's not from your world, where the main world was not technologically developed at all. It was very, you know, Middle Ages. You get to this other world and it's future tech. And it kind of has the future from Chrono Trigger after Lavos burst out of the ground. And then you have to explore this dying world because this is where the Fleshmancer currently is residing and destroying. And it's crazy how dark the story gets from this point on because you see directly what he does when he is involved with a planet. He is roboticizing all the people so they are undying machines, constantly unable to feel, and they're depressed and they can't do anything about it. And you have to try to make things right. The sun has been blocked out, the moon has been sank under the ocean, and there's a dweller on the planet growing massively. And then, when that is all said and done, you have the dweller's castle floating in the sky. So you have to do a bunch of quests on the planet so you can get up to the Fleshmancer. And what has to be said is that there are two endings to the game. You have the regular ending, and then after you beat the game, you do a certain thing in order to go back in time a little bit. And it's really important that I explain this. Even though I haven't, when I streamed it, I didn't do the extra ending yet. I'm going to. I did read into the whole thing. So the main game's ending, when you beat the game without doing all the extra stuff, the Fleshmancer and the Immortal Alchemist leave in the end. And they are going to leave these two planets alone. But they're still out there. And they're still playing the game of cat and mouse. And you fight against a world devourer that's a planet devourer that's coming down. And you have to destroy it. And it goes into like a bullet hell kind of game, which is pretty interesting because it completely changed the way the game was at the very end. But that being said, I don't know if this is the true ending or the good ending. You go back in time keep Garl from dying, and Garl then pisses off the Fleshmancer so much you directly fight him. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing and experiencing for myself, but I'm just taking a break from the game for a little bit. But being able to truly defeat him would be great because the amount of horror that he inflicts throughout the game, and he's so nonchalant about it. He's directly a villain. There is no good in him. There's no trying to like say, "Oh, shades of gray." No, he is evil, and that's very refreshing to have a villain be that evil, no shades of gray. And what's important to know about the ties to the messenger is the final boss of the messenger is a four-headed giant flying eyeball monster. So if you notice, there were four acolytes and a giant eyeball monster. The Fleshmancer combined them together and created the main villain in the messenger. So even with that, it's not certain if everybody, well, that the world was truly saved or not. So I don't know if the um, secret ending to Sea of Stars is actually the canon ending because of things that occur with the messenger. And that goes really dark. But, anyways, the game's a lot of fun, and I highly suggest playing through it, especially for the music, because the music is out of this world.